Pedro Ruiz III. On June 26, 2017, 22-year-old Pedro Ruiz stood in front of his pregnant girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez, outside their Minnesota home. The couple had been working desperately to grow their YouTube channel, posting increasingly risky pranks to attract viewers. That evening, they were attempting their most dangerous stunt yet. Pedro held a hardcover encyclopedia against his chest. He was convinced the book would stop a bullet. Mona Lisa, following his instructions, aimed a Desert Eagle .50 caliber handgun directly at him from just 1 foot away. Their 3-year-old daughter was nearby, watching. The Desert Eagle is one of the most powerful handguns in the world. Each bullet travels at 1,500 feet per second, with enough force to penetrate a car door. Pedro believed the 1.5-inch thick book would protect him. He had tested it earlier by shooting at another book, but he hadn't verified the results. Mona Lisa hesitated, expressing doubts about the stunt. Pedro insisted it was safe. "I can't do it," she said on camera. "I'm so scared." Pedro continued to reassure her. "As long as you hit the book, you'll be fine." At 6:30 p.m., she pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the encyclopedia as if it were paper. It struck Pedro directly in the chest, creating a wound channel through his vital organs. He collapsed immediately. When paramedics arrived, they found Pedro unresponsive with a massive wound to his torso. He was pronounced dead at the scene, his final moments captured on the camera that was still recording for their channel. Shavdal Sharma. On January 18, 2020, 67-year-old retired railway worker Shavdal Sharma was filming content for his small YouTube channel dedicated to rural Indian life. Having worked for the railways for 35 years, Sharma had developed a fascination with trains and frequently recorded videos near the tracks in Uttar Pradesh, despite the obvious dangers. That morning, Sharma positioned himself approximately 30 meters from the tracks near Mathura Junction. He was filming the arrival of the Delhi-Mumbai Express, which would pass through at approximately 110 kilometers per hour. His camera was set up on a tripod, and he stood behind it, narrating the approaching train for his 3,000 subscribers. At 10:47 a.m., the express train struck a cow that had wandered onto the tracks. The impact at high speed created a force of approximately 50,000 newtons, enough to launch the 400-kilogram animal into the air. The cow was propelled in an arc that tragically intersected with Sharma's filming position. Physics dictates that objects in motion remain in motion. The cow, now a biological projectile, traveled 30 meters through the air. Sharma had less than 2 seconds between the initial impact and his own fate. The footage shows his expression changing from concentration to horror as the bovine mass hurtled toward him. The collision was catastrophic. The cow struck Sharma directly, transferring most of its kinetic energy in an instant. The force shattered multiple ribs, which punctured his lungs and heart. His spine was severed at the 5th vertebra. Death was virtually instantaneous. His camera captured the entire sequence, including the moment of impact. Railway officials later calculated that the probability of such an accident, a cow being launched at precisely the right angle to strike someone standing where Sharma was, at less than 1 in 50 million. Ivan Lester McGuire. On April 2, 1988, experienced skydiving instructor Ivan McGuire prepared for what would be his 800th jump. At 35 years old, he was no stranger to the dangers of freefall. That day, McGuire was filming a student training jump for Franklin County Sport Parachute Center in North Carolina. Focused entirely on his video equipment, McGuire boarded the plane with his heavy VHS camera strapped to his helmet. The aircraft climbed to 10,500 feet. When it reached jump altitude, McGuire followed his student out the door without hesitation. The camera captured everything that followed. For the first few seconds, everything seemed normal. McGuire filmed the student performing maneuvers against the backdrop of Earth below. Then came a moment of horrific realization. His hands moved to his shoulders, frantically searching for parachute straps that weren't there. McGuire had forgotten to put on his parachute. The video showed his growing panic as he faced the unthinkable. He was falling 120 miles per hour with no way to slow down. His breathing became increasingly rapid as the ground approached. For 45 terrifying seconds, McGuire plummeted through open air, aware of his fate but completely powerless to change it. The camera recorded his final moments, including his desperate attempts to somehow save himself. The impact occurred in a field near Lewisburg. The force was instant and catastrophic, killing him immediately. When authorities recovered the camera, the footage revealed the full horror of his fatal mistake. The video became one of the most disturbing examples of a preventable death captured from the victim's perspective. Ruben Carbonell. On July 5, 2019, 24-year-old Spanish YouTuber Ruben Carbonell was determined to capture extreme footage for his growing adventure channel. He had built his online persona around dangerous stunts, seeking the adrenaline rush that attracted viewers. That night, under cover of darkness, he approached a cement factory in Alicante, Spain. At approximately 1 o'clock a.m., Carbonell scaled the fence surrounding the industrial complex. Security cameras captured him moving quickly toward his target, a 150-foot chimney towering above the facility. He carried a small backpack containing his base jumping parachute and a camera to document the illegal jump. Reaching the base of the chimney, Carbonell began to climb. The structure had no safety ladder, forcing him to use maintenance rungs attached to its side. For nearly 30 minutes, he ascended in the darkness, his movements increasingly precarious as he reached the top. At the summit, Carbonell set up his camera to capture the jump. He put on his parachute harness and stood at the edge. Without hesitation, he leaped into the darkness. What happened next was catastrophic. The parachute failed to deploy properly. Investigators later determined that either the pack was improperly prepared or the brief freefall didn't provide enough time for full deployment. Carbonell had no reserve chute. He plummeted the entire 150 feet without any deceleration. The impact was immediate and fatal, crushing his skull and shattering his spine. Factory workers discovered his body the next morning, the camera still attached to his helmet, having recorded his final moments in excruciating detail. Nishu Deshwal. October 28, 2022. 22-year-old Nishu Deshwal set up his phone on a tripod in a dusty field in Haryana, India. He had built a modest following on YouTube by performing increasingly dangerous vehicle stunts. That afternoon, he planned to attempt something no one on his channel had seen before, a wheelie on a 4-ton Mahindra tractor. Over 200 followers were watching his live stream as Deshwal climbed into the driver's seat. The massive agricultural vehicle, designed for stability rather than stunts, sat menacingly in the afternoon sun. Its enormous rear tires stood nearly 6 feet tall, each weighing over 400 pounds. Deshwal revved the diesel engine, causing black smoke to billow from the exhaust stack. "Watch this!" he shouted to his audience. He slammed the accelerator to the floor and yanked back on the steering wheel. The tractor's front end began to rise. The physics of what happened next were inevitable. As the machine tilted backward, its center of gravity shifted drastically. Unlike motorcycles, tractors have no safety mechanisms to prevent full inversion. At approximately 75 degrees, the vehicle passed its tipping point. The tractor flipped completely backward. Deshwal had no time to jump clear. The roll bar crushed him instantly against the hard-packed earth. The massive weight of the machine, equivalent to 2 standard cars, compressed his chest cavity beyond what human physiology could withstand. His phone continued recording as horrified witnesses rushed to help, but there was nothing they could do. The pressure had caused catastrophic internal injuries, rupturing his heart and lungs immediately. Nishu Deshwal was declared dead at the scene, his final moments broadcast live to his followers.